Hey, hello, and welcome to episode 3 of AI Tings, the only podcast where you can find out the news about AI and also hear a few bad jokes. Michael, how are you doing today?
We're doing incredibly. It's actually a really exciting day because we're deviating from our standard topics. I was just talking about AI technology. Now we're talking about what's actually humanly happening within the AI space. Tom, do you want to introduce our first topic of the day?
Yes, we're talking about hackathons, right? London has so many hackathons. There was 3 running at the same time last Saturday. I've participated in one of them, and I've got some thoughts. I think the first one is definitely changing, right? Hackathons are no longer what they used to be. You're no longer sitting there for 2 days with on Red Bulls, basically starving yourself and trying to code something up. It's a 6 hour affair, right? You come in the morning and you're done by 6 p.m. ready for football, which is great because I don't want to be spending all my time with these people. I want to have a bit of time off on the weekend, and it's great because you're no longer focusing on just the code itself, a pretty demo. But what I really liked about this hackathon by Growth X that I've attended is the fact that you are also trying to gain as much virality with your product or as much revenue, right? So that you can then take this product, pitch it, and start selling. Essentially, it's a direct path straight into a startup, right? And we build an app called launchpost.app, waitlist open, please sign up, which is a social media scheduling platform, which addresses the biggest problem there is, which is distribution, which we'll be talking about later. And yeah, we had great success, and we chose virality, which means we were judged on the number of engagements, views, and signups that we got, as opposed to just the technical proficiency, which I really liked. It really makes you think about, how do I gain traction, etc. I've got a really cool story to tell, but first of all, Michael, what do you think of this new change to how hackathons are now being run?
I think the first thing is that the amount of hackathons that, over the past 10 years have been happening has been huge. It's, before we barely had a few, and now we basically have one every single Saturday.
Mm-hmm.
Such an overwhelming thing, right? Because nowadays, what we end up happening is that we don't struggle for people to come to hackathons anymore. We struggle to have hackathons which are competing for people's attention at this
Mm-hmm.
point, and that is truly amazing. Not now people can build so many things. We have such a big variety of people coming into the hackathons. I'm curious. So I did a hackathon at Downing Street. It was a special hackathon to help the government solve their problems. Right. So we organized a team. This was nearly a year ago at this point, and we had people from a range of places, but we worked on some highly technical skills, and it was a particular field so to the government. But your hackathon was much more open about that. And what kind of people came to that hackathon?
I think it's quite diverse in a sense. You have your typical builders, right? Engineers from enterprise startups, etc. Just fleshing out ideas that they want to spend time on. But it's really nice to see people from like um, adjacent. So there was one guy, Victor, from AWS that I was in a team with. And there's also people from universities, from like more salesy, foundery sort of stuff. People who might not know how to code, might have to ask you about how Git works, don't know how branches, but they know how to use Codex and they know how to use Cloud Code, right?
Right.
And they have ideas and they can bring expertise, which is really nice because you can just give them a task or they can find themselves a task and simply work on it autonomously. With these quite generous offers from OpenAI about subscriptions and tokens, you don't have to even use your own material. You can just sort of get started, um, and yeah, start building something. So it's really diverse, which I like. Um, yeah, it's noobs and pros alike, basically.
Yeah, now everyone can do a bit of coding, try to figure out the demo, and obviously, so a couple of years ago, it was much harder to see a good demo.
Mm-hmm.
How many good demos did you see this Saturday?
Well, there's some good demos. In a sense, there's like the top five actually had working prototypes demos. I think depending on which track you chose, I think everyone just went for the agents, which I thought was a bit boring because there's that revenue and virality option, but nobody has shown that. Although, because it was worldwide, so they were doing Hermes hackathons in India, in San Francisco, in Europe at the same time. There were people who did get paid, so you can simply integrate Stripe, get somebody on the site, and even sell right there. So I think that's the kind of basically the highest personal achievement to me, because like you can make a pretty demo with an agent, but realistically that product will just get lost on your laptop and you never work on it again. Whereas something like that creates demand and like you realize instant value.
Yeah,
Yeah,
which is
those. Yeah, go on, go.
I was gonna say this is really the sort of the next question is it transitions everything from okay, how do we build a decent demo, a decent product to how do we go about actually marketing it and how do we go about getting it into people's hands, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
just the other day you created this really cool website you called the Forecast
Yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah,
and
Forecast, um, which is an app. So when you go to an event, right, you sometimes don't know what the kind of food they have, right? They might like not say anything about it, or it just can be pizza. But what kind of pizza is it? Is it like Domino's, or is it like al dente, very nice pizza, right? So what this app does is that we obviously gather this information, and then you can plan your day to eat for free for the whole day. So it offers you a breakfast, a lunch, and a dinner. Um, so only for a small fee, you can simply eat for free in London, which is massive money saver. So yeah, it's out. It's live now. Link in the description. Check it out and see if you can get some free food. It
yeah,
obviously depends on user feedback, so people have to go in, check it out, and see what actual food is there.
yeah,
To actually inform others. As a community builder. Um, so, but why the reason why these apps are important is that obviously that's not going to be your money maker, leave your job sort of thing. Um, but it's interesting because they bring a bit of virality, a bit of traction, right? Which then feeds your personal brand and your distribution. And distribution is key, as we know, right? Like code is cheap, distribution is key. That's why social media, SEO, you got to put more than 50% of your time in it, right? Step away from the code, talk to people, talk to clients, talk to customers, figure out what works and what do people want.
yeah.
Yeah.
Because realistically, right, the thing that people really struggle with is differentiating themselves. Let's say even if
Mm-hmm.
they make an agent, right? How do they differentiate their agent from another agent, right? Coders, traditionally have been very antisocial. Now, you have other people coming in and doing exactly the same thing, building a product, and then they think to themselves, "Oh, how are we going to differentiate this? How are we actually going to drive traffic to these areas?" And there's many different ways. I mean, you mentioned SEO for one. That's a
Mm-hmm.
massive way to get people. And I think going forward, the way we build demos, the way we build new ideas, is going to come from a place of marketing first,
Mm-hmm.
and then from there just being able to build whatever you're selling,
Mm-hmm.
right? um and because a lot of startups are launching now and you look at them and they have exactly the same marketing and say, oh, you know maybe to the viewers this is even an open question, because I constantly see companies. Just the other day I saw a friend show a company called Future Work AI or something like that, and their whole shtick is, oh, they're trying to make your agent more reliable and they're trying to make sure it doesn't make any mistakes. How many companies are doing that, right? What differentiates this company from a different company, or like even that code from other code, right? It's and it doesn't help the fact that all these models, LLMs, right, essentially regurgitate the same code over and over again when you build it. It's like you build the same code, right? It's
Hmm.
like, do you even have different marketing, or are you just selling you're just a vendor of the exactly the same thing that has been trained on and then regurgitated? And it's because the Y Combinator, right? Why it's so effective is not even because it has excellent startups that make fantastic products, is because they give a massive platform for marketing, right? Think about this. The way Y Combinator works is you come in with the product, whatever product is, right? Let's say you make sure that your website and your operations online, right, is ISO compliant. We're not going to mention the company here, but they have been accused of, faking it until they make it. But essentially, the idea is every single Y Combinator company then uses that product, and they create a bit of the circulation, get a bit of customers going, and then they try to expand from there because then they have essentially a user base. And for a lot of these companies, they are now trying to go into enterprise space, and
Hmm.
we're probably thinking why. Right, because enterprise marketing is very different to the marketing of consumables, consumer-related products. When you market consumer-related products, like Forecast, for example, it is going to go on the basis the fact that it's helpful. Guys, come on, we need to drive Forecast. It's the next best thing. Uh, but it has different marketing than trying to go to an enterprise and say, look, uh, you know, I'm the representative, I'm the sales guy for, XYZ corporation, we sell you the next best agent, and this is the kind of thing we can do for you. So it's a one-on-one relationship, and they actually actively scout those people. But when you're looking at consumers, you don't have the budget to be able to pay your salespeople and go and sell it to every single customer. So has different marketing. The message is considerably different, right? But most of these tools, let's say agents, for example, they can be used by both consumers and enterprises, right? Because
Hmm.
good technologies are typically very, very scalable.
Hmm.
So what seems to be happening is that a lot of companies are taking the easy route and deciding to hire salespeople to just be able to go and target these companies. And the question at the end of the day, probably not for us, but seems to be the trend, is which of these ways is better. Because again, the product can be the same. You can build the product,
Hmm.
and we constantly see, we go to this event very often called AI Builders. Really fantastic event. We're
Shout
gonna
out
leave
AI
the
builders.
yeah, we're going to leave the event in the video description. But essentially, why is it so inspirational? It's really inspirational because you have people coming from all kinds of backgrounds to be able to build and show off things that very often they wouldn't be able to build on their own, not only because they might not have the skills, but they might not actually have the time to do it, right? And just the other day, I was sitting next to Tom in that event, and he built Forecast from scratch, right? We're sitting in a space that we've never seen before. Super fast iteration, right? And people can build things on the spot, test them out. Again, but it doesn't matter what the code looks like sometimes. If you show off a demo, you show off the idea, that like forecast could go viral because it is incredibly useful, right? But it all doesn't always work. It depends on what exactly, like if you are trying to sell a productivity application, whatever it is, let's say an agent, it has to work, right? For the forecast, could be a fun thing, right? It's more marketing based kind of
Hmm.
situation. But we constantly see a lot of amazing presentations, amazing demos, right? And we hope to have one of the people that gave a presentation recently as our guest very, very soon. I think we're going to discuss a lot of great topics about what they have done. Tom has done a collaboration with him. So we're going to keep it quiet under wraps until we have the date confirmed. It's going to be a big thing. But you definitely see a lot of people who are trying to do different things and are bringing other ideas from other spaces um, into that area. Um, Tom, do you have any more thoughts before we move on to our next topic?
Yeah, no, I think AI engineers AI builders brings a good point that I think the mode becomes distribution, and distribution is not only direct selling, but it's also like events, organizing events, um, and having that sort of authority that when you're an event organizer, you bring people together and they start associating you with a certain level of PR, basically. Like they start coming to you and saying, "Hey, can I showcase my product?" Or you become the sort of networking connector where if you can bring certain people together, have them have a productive conversation, and then they associate you with having this sort of network effect. And so they start coming to more and more events. Even the Claw Social that I run, that I help out Tony with, it's great because you get to see the same people coming again and again. And yeah, it's just nice because when you put something with your own hands, you can also set the mood, and you got this great deal of contacts that you can expand on. So
Yeah.
I think in-person events are key.
I think
Hence why
AI
I'm moving to
builders,
London.
yeah, I think AI builders, unlike the hackathons, are also great because you can do anything and you can show and talk about it, right, in a
Mm,
very open space, with supporting individuals. And it's just such a wonderful thing to see people working on stuff, and it's really inspirational. And it's very similar to the homebrew computer club that
mm,
is so famously talked about. Where people came together and talked about ideas. Right, we don't have to all be experts, but just bringing the enthusiasm in. I think that also says that now in spare time we can do more. So you don't actually always need to like necessarily come into a hackathon and be able to make something that you need to
mm,
show off, because what, for example, Tom made in 2 hours is probably just as impressive as many of the demos and products I have seen
mm,
in hackathons, right? Because sometimes people don't realize is that an hour or two of work can just be as valuable as 6 hours of work, right? Depends on the simplicity of the case. And I think now it's so much more important than ever before to be able to be simple, because writing code is now such an easy thing, right? People nowadays, I feel like, fall in trap, especially when creating products and trying to move them forward, is they think, oh, a thing didn't go viral. Okay, that means it doesn't have enough features. Let me spend more time putting more features, right? Instead of
yeah.
just trying to come up with a better solution to fix whatever the underlying issue is. And sometimes you have to say, okay, this didn't work, so I'm just going to move on to the next thing, right?
Mm,
Because sometimes you can iterate, but you need to know that you're iterating in the right way. Just because you can iterate faster doesn't mean that you're doing it in the right space. But I do think being able to come out and test out very quickly if it works or it doesn't is a very productive thing to do, right? Because
mm,
how are you going to know what it looks like without really being able to engage with it?
mm,
So I think we're going to see more of those kinds of events.
mm.
And if any of our listeners are interested, do come to the next AI Builder. Come and say hi, and show us what you guys have been building. That would be really, really exciting.
And then come to the podcast and showcase it.
Absolutely.
And that's where you
Again,
get viral.
more AI building on AI Tings.
It's a franchise. We're expanding. Yeah, yeah.
We're expanding big time. So, Tom, all right, time to move on to our next topic.
Hmm. What is it?
What is it?
What's the next topic?
Well, the next topic is we're gonna talk about. I think if we quickly cover any updates that we've learned about this week, right?
Oh, yeah, yeah. We can do that. We can do that.
Yeah, I think that's important because we are an incredible source of information
Yeah.
for the people out there. So, Tom, since we've done the last episode, right? Any big updates, any big thoughts that you've had? Because I have a few.
Well, I'm sure people have seen the new models, right? And people want to be like, okay, I'm just going to stick with Claude, right? I'm just going to still stick with GPT 5.6. But the thing is, now with these new models, is you got so many, right? You got Muse 1.1, shout out. You got Grok 4.5, which is actually quite a good model. I was using it in Cursor and I was like, damn, this is good. And it's cheaper, right? It's like Opus level. So the point is like, damn, you got to really try this out. And so if you're ever in doubt, visit Clawbench and you get to see various benchmarks for these models to see how they perform. I've just added UI Bench, which is like which model is the best at creating like 3D environments and visuals. Of course, coding, right? And we're going to be expanding into pricing as well. So like, see what's the optimal model for your price. Yeah, damn, so many good models, so many tokens floating about. It's hard to say like that there's a correct way of doing it now. Um, I mean, GPT 5.6 Soul, it's a really good model. Um, I heard a nice description, which is if it was an animal, it's like a bulldog, right? So it's just like it just guns towards the target, right? You set it a goal, it can run for 2 days, uninterrupted. It just doesn't give up, right? Which is like, but Fable is like more of an owl, right? It's more like takes a step back, more creative, has like more different options, but might not stick with the task for as long, right? So I like both, but it's like astrology for boys, right? It's like giving your models personality and like arguing which one is the best. Um, Michael, if you had to attribute a characteristic to models, what would you say different models feel like?
That's actually a really good point. I've been doing more and more testing of Apple's foundation
Mm,
models. I talk a lot about them. The reason why is because I think the fine tuning of training based on the framework, the guardrails are
mm,
amazing. I think
mm,
that's big strength of those kinds of things. But actually, what I was gonna say in terms of different models and different workflows, right? On the show, we talk about, it depends on the kinds of workflows you have, the different models. And it just reminded me that I think when we now have people building with AI, they often build with isolation,
mm,
right? And it's a really big problem. It's a problem that just keeps getting worse
mm,
because now you can say, oh, I don't really need a team. I just, put me with some tokens, right? And just because you getting those tokens pumped in, right, doesn't necessarily mean that you don't need those opinions, right? In the beginning of this episode, you mentioned that you had this guy from AWS who came from with some expertise, some opinions, right? And sometimes these decisions take a long time, to crystallize from knowledge and opinions, and you have to physically read about them or learn about them. And it comes from doing startup work, it comes from doing contracting work, permanent jobs, just any kinds of things. And you understand that different tools serve different functions. And this is one of those things that I think is truly amazing about hackathons, is seeing a lot of the times the same thing being built in such a myriad of different ways. And it just shows you how different execution can be, right? Because and sometimes you need another person to say, wow, this is a fantastic idea, or another person to tell you, yeah, this is like not a good way of doing it. You should try doing it in a different way. And I think people often forget that that point of human connection is so important, because really at the end of the day, right, what I think every single industry has learned, especially technology, is that it's not for the sake of technology that we do things. It's not for the sake of technology that we do research. It's for the sake of humanly elements of saying, okay, well, we want to achieve something, right? How do we go from there down to the tech stack, right? Because at the end of the day, again, coming down to marketing of like trying to make a startup viral is you go from the idea, down below into kind of what technology you'd like to build out of that. And it's important to obviously build communities, be part of good communities, but it's even more important to be part of communities that are constantly saying, okay, well, this is good, right? But can it be done a little bit better? And trying to offer other viewpoints on the kinds of things, how they can be done. Because it's really easy to get stuck in this funnel that just keeps thinking the same thing, over and over and over again. And I do think that compared to, we're very lucky nowadays because we can be around the globe, uh, working, over Zoom or whatever, and building like innovative things, because Tom, you're in Brighton right now, and I'm in London, and we're still able to work and do this podcast, and that's truly really incredible. And I think those kinds of community events, hackathons, still bring people together, and that is so important because I can see that people can build a lot of stuff. I talk to a lot of people, and they are often scared to share their work. Their work can be really incredible, but they think, "Oh, I'm gonna get judged if I don't get it out," because now, especially, the stakes are higher in terms of
Mm.
quality, right? People can build things much better, much faster, and they think, "Oh, I can, add another thing, slightly make it better there," and they just keep doing that without actually revealing it to the world. And it's just, it's a constant thing of needing to be able to showcase and talk about it and come into a supportive community where we can look onto that. I think that brings us to a really good question of which um, people like Primogen on YouTube and on Twitter have been discussing, and then the the guy who is called I think Hoshi on Twitter. He's a big proponent of looking at the code, and he's a guy who created Ghostly, the
Mm.
Ghostly terminal. If anyone listening is familiar with that, so he's a really great guy, and he's been, yeah, exactly. See, Tom's in the
I
know.
love use it daily. It's great.
Yeah, it's so the creator of Ghostly, right? He talks a lot about reviewing the code, reading the code, um, you know, trying to make it a little bit more constructive. And it's insane that there's a debate going on right now. Then some people are saying, well, do look at the code or don't look at the code. But people actually get really emotional and really angry, right? About whether they look or don't look at the code, right? Because you have communities like Linux, for example, who are saying, if you haven't looked at this PR as a human, don't bother
Mm.
sending it, right? Because
That's Linus. Yeah, that's Linus and his sort of
no, but
old
even
school
like
ways.
the creator of Ghostly, right? He basically has put a pill in his libraries that people can contribute to that send an agent haywire if they try to submit a PR without having a human review. So they're now going on the defense and basically trying to apply their own, and they have AI contribution policies nowadays as well in the repositories, right? That explain how an AI needs to be doing PRs, with what kind of quality. There was a story of a guy who basically created a bunch of documents and licenses to tell AIs how to contribute to his repository. It was obviously, he chose JavaScript as the main language, and he made it very broad. And he received a lot of PRs and a lot of stars from agents because the agents were just targeted simply to go ahead and contribute
Hmm.
to any useful, right? Because they just want to rank up contributions on their GitHub, so they want to game the system and use agents in their own time. I mean,
Mm.
I've been speaking to a friend of ours, and he was talking about how uh, he's trying to network on LinkedIn using his agent. trying to
Mm.
increase engagement using an agent, but he is doing it in such a way that he doesn't get caught. Which to myself, I
Sneaky.
thought this is interesting, huh?
Sneaky. Sneaky. Sneaky.
Oh, it is very sneaky, right? He does it every 2 or 3 hours,
Mm.
which is incredible, right? Because otherwise he says LinkedIn algorithm will catch him, and so his agent has access, right, to all these things, and basically just comments, engages with people, and then replies to messages when
Mm.
people message. Um, and now he received an invitation from this guy from a big open source community to come and contribute to his community. And when he received that and actually read it, because he receives a summary at the end of the day from his agent saying what has been achieved, he freaked out a little bit. He says, "Wow, okay, this is not something I expected to happen, right?" And
Mm-hmm.
now he has to figure out how to engage on his own, right? Because if he ever talks to this guy, he'll be like, okay, how do I, and he might have a split of personality, LinkedIn versus, off LinkedIn, which I think is very amusing because he's not a very, public persona as well. So kind of trying to use technology, to speed up time and increase the quantity, right, of how you can engage, because he says that he would barely be engaging on LinkedIn otherwise. And this just made me think of how many people right now on LinkedIn or other platforms are basically just, making these bots
Mm-hmm.
that represent themselves, that actually are the ones engaging. Because you don't really know like who's posting what,
Mm-hmm.
and that's just truly incredible. But actually, it also brings you on to a topic that we had for a while, like how do you recognize when AI does writing? Because sometimes it's good when they automate some things. Like, let's say, for example, there's an announcement, and you give your agent, oh, announce this when this happens. Let's say you have a PR and you have a new release, and then automatically it
Mm-hmm.
releases an announcement, on LinkedIn and other platforms at the same time, right? That could be a positive, and that positive because it means that we automate things. And Tom has a lot to talk about when it comes to PRs. He's very knowledgeable in terms of that. He loves to have his agents work while he sleeps, while he rests. But it's like there is also that view where you can actually accelerate, right, the way you get things done. For example, I saw a post on LinkedIn which was from a head of talent at a company, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then I um, went on and actually applied for that position that he had at his company. And I commented and I said that the post was truly inspirational to me, but he wrote it himself, and so we achieved human connection. And that was very straightforward, right? In that sense. And then, but you have other, maybe recruiters or other people who, don't necessarily do that. And it kind of becomes a game of just agents talking to each other. And we just, end up spending ourselves to uh, token oblivion, maybe. But, you know, to each, their strengths and weaknesses. Now, Tom, do you want to talk a little bit about the automation software factories? How you're able to push PRs while you sleep.
Mate, I'm still waiting on what animal do you think the Apple models are?
The Apple models. Oh, damn.
What animal
I
are
don't.
they?
I don't know.
Like,
An owl, maybe.
what's the an owl? Also an
Yeah.
owl, but they're like small. They're like not that
Owls? No.
smart,
No. Owls can
but
be
they're
big.
fast. They're more like mice, like rats.
No. 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 Owls are very. No. The thing
Small
is,
owl.
like the guardrails. The guardrails very very good. I haven't seen. Like you
But
try to.
the problem with those models, no benchmarks. There's no way to like. It's all vibes. It's like
Yeah,
maybe
but
we
Tom,
should try benchmark them.
how many times on the show have we mentioned that the benchmarks are like the new GPT comes out, right?
Yeah,
Like breaks all the benchmarks. Like
yeah, but
how we at this point?
yeah.
Come on.
Obviously, not all benchmarks are the same. But a benchmark at least gives you a relative idea of how good the model is. Because, okay, not to get too meta with it, but like, unless you have like a dynamic benchmark, the only alternative is a static benchmark. And with these Apple models, there's no numbers. Like, if you tell me, like, okay, Apple models are 60% on terminal bench, that gives me a relative understanding of how good the model is. Or like agents last exam, like knowledge work or PQA, science work, right? Gives me an idea. Right now, it's just like, oh, it's this local model, which is very niche, right?
Well, no, they have a cloud model as well, so they have a family of models that they do have,
Same,
and
same
they
problem,
do have.
same problem with that one. Like, how good is the cloud one compared to the normal one? Anyways, that's some ideas. Maybe we'll try to prepare something for the next episode if anyone's interested. But in terms of the other things you were talking about, which is the how to make good writing content, right? That's an interesting topic. I was reading a paper recently. It's called the Gödel machine, Darwin Gödel machine, which is like about self-improving agents. And one task that they've given it is scientific paper reviews, right? So the agent writes the paper and the other one reviews it. But the initial problem is that the AI judge always favors its own output. So it always ranks it really high. They're like, it's best paper ever, man. Accept it, right? Which is like not really what you want because it just like reads a bit like AI slop, and it's like,
Yeah. Tom,
it's like,
this would run into the exact same problem if you as a researcher wrote and graded your own papers.
yeah, that's why we could kind of grade each other. So, but the human review is the bottleneck if you want this sort of autonomous system. So what you instead do is you generate a bunch of AI outputs, which are very obviously AI. You label them, be like, this is a bad review, this is a bad paper, this is a bad paper. And then you explicitly tell the model, either through the weights or sort of in test time, don't output AI papers. And they claim it's a big improvement, and the paper has more information about it. So I think that's the best way to go about it, right? Instead of just writing AI blogs, AI articles, you provide prompt instructions of what you want, and you can further refine it with a bit of fine tuning to add a bit of character. When I'm writing blogs or posts, I usually do it by hand. Like I do the draft with AI and then sort of tweak it by hand because you need to enjoy the process as well. You're not just a content factory. I think put your ideas down, really think them through, right? Personally, I think that's important. Same with specs, right? You want to be reading at least a spec, but hand off the execution to an agent. Um, so that's my thoughts in terms of like, yes, there's ways to automate a lot, but also don't just lose the humanity of the content you put out. Yeah, we could, in theory, have two little AI videos, me and you, just produce, hours worth of content like that for like $10, $10 an hour. But
Yeah.
no, we sit down here instead and we chat through stuff, and perhaps we'll learn a few things.
Yeah, you and I.
So yeah, maybe me and you, and shout out Dad if you're watching this. Shout out Dmitry if you're watching this. Shout out. To be fair, I got a few engagements on my Twitter post with this. I don't know who else is watching, but let us know. Let us know. Yeah, in terms of content, in terms of AI factories, right? It's the same topic. Like, how much of it are you doing? How much of it is a loop? Let us know if you want to if you'd like us to cover loops, and whether you're running it locally or in the cloud. So I think we're moving towards sort of loops in the cloud loops, right? Which is agents running until a condition is met. You set them in the morning, come back at night, and they're in the cloud, so that never they're not constrained by your hardware, right?
Yeah.
So let us know if you want us to cover that. Michael?
It's a the loop is a really big new thing because they're basically, instead of like trying to prompt engineering, now they're writing loops. And I was actually just going to say that um, there's a new library, pxpipe, which basically created this workflow of the basis that if you have a lot of text, uh, you have 10 tokens of text, and it can be one image token. This will basically save you an insane amount of space, and that image tokens are much more efficient, right, if you have a lot of text. So what we could end up just seeing is that we start moving on to more image-based communication, right? Instead of, but this just, you know,
Hieroglyphs, emojis, for
yeah, yeah, exactly. Like, because think about it. If you're writing a spec is very text heavy, right? And the issue comes from the fact that if you and I we communicate in text, or we communicate essentially with language to each other back and forth, right? But again, even for humans, an image is 1,000 words, and it seems like from these transformer architectures we are getting to a space, and with the amount of innovation that we have, that big companies, because think about it, big companies spending mostly now not on language models, they're spending on image models, video. It's the biggest new frontier, and really that's why we have such a big RAM shortage. um but 10 tokens into one token for an image, right? And so this pipeline claims that you can reduce 59 to 70% of Fable's token usage. Right, bear in mind, Fable is a very token heavy model. Um, that's a big savior, and it was covered by Primogen yesterday, which is why it really caught my attention, because there's a lot of new innovations happening. Right, we mentioned loops, and that's just a new way to program and work around the limitations of the language models, and trying to make them more agentic, but also behave in such a way that is more predictable and significantly more deterministic, right? Because if you have a loop, it is constrained by the loop and the variables within that. Otherwise, you have the agent. If you give them enough space, right, they start coming up with ways and just going in all sorts of kind of directions, right? But if they're trying to figure it out in one spot, you constrain significantly. And not only that, but you also save on tokens in the moment, but also in general. And if you do with an image, it's also a self-constraint, right? Because you only have so many pixels that they work with. So I guess we should really try it out, test it, and then just see if this is a new thing, because this is really insane.
Mhm.
Coming from what's happening at the moment. But yeah, Tom, do you have anything to add?
No, I think it's a nice point to sort of finish up. It's This episode is a playbook, right? It's an instruction manual, right? You listen to it at least twice, maybe three times, right? And you're saying, hey, what are the key lessons learned? Distribution, community, networking. And then we talk about building. How do you build fast? How do you build efficiently? And don't waste all your tokens. Which model do you choose? And lots of other lessons. Just take the transcript, feed it into your agent, and you have a 1 billion SaaS. Like, this is how it works
Yeah,
around here.
yeah. We need to
Um,
release AI Tings skill.
I think there should be. I think should be. I
On
think
how to process knowledge,
I think
knowledge much better.
you, the reader, dilute yourself, distill yourself into a skill.
Yeah,
And then you
that's a
simply
good
have an
idea.
agent running around.
Do
Boom.
do a self distillation.
Exactly. Exactly. Self-distillation is the future, right? Um, but yeah, I think it's a good wrap for today. Listeners, let us know what you thought. Think about what are the key takeaways we can take away from these gurus, right? Or call us out. Say, Tom, Michael, you're full of shit. Like, you're actually spouting nonsense. But yeah, please let us know what you think. And let us know what you think. There's going to be a guest on the next one, a mystery guest. Nobody would have guessed. Michael, closing
Yeah,
remarks?
I just want to say to the audience, drive engagement, guys.
Yeah, drive engagement,
Yeah,
please.
whatever you say, agree, disagree with us.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
just drive engagement, right?
Like, call us out. Call us out.
Yeah,
Like, just do it.
try calling us
If I
out.
stole your ideas, if I stole your startup ideas, call us out. Um, cheers, guys. Until the next time.